You think you know what betrayal looks like, until someone shows you fake school certificates with your own name on them as the father. Until you realize the children you've been sending money to for 3 years don't exist. Until you understand that the woman sleeping next to you every night has built an entire fictional family around your loneliness. I'm 69 years old from Madrid, and I thought I'd seen every kind of lie a person could tell. But in Bangkok, I learned there are deceptions so perfect, so complete, that you'll defend them even when the truth is staring you in the face. If our stories resonate with you, don't forget to like, comment, and tell us where you're watching from. This story was shared with us by one of our long-time viewers who wanted his experience to serve as a warning to other expat men. I stare at the photos scattered across my kitchen table in Madrid, and my hands won't stop shaking. Little Niran with his school uniform, holding up a certificate with my name listed as father. Sweet Kulap in her dance costume, smiling at the camera during what Sirilawan called her recital. 3 years of believing these children were real, were mine, were waiting for me in Bangkok. The evidence of my stupidity spreads before me like a crime scene, and I can't stop looking at their faces, even though I know now they're just stock photos she bought online. The certificates look so official with their fancy letterheads and official stamps. I run my finger over the embossed seal on Niran's honor roll certificate, feeling the raised texture that convinced me this was legitimate. How many hours did I spend staring at these documents, feeling proud of my boy's achievements? How many times did I show them to other expats at the coffee shop, bragging about my smart son who was excelling in school? The shame burns in my chest like acid. I was 66 when I first saw Sirilawan, retired from my consulting business in Madrid, living off my pension and feeling invisible in a world that seemed designed for younger people. My wife had died 5 years earlier, and I'd spent those years rattling around our empty apartment like a ghost. When friends suggested I try living abroad, Thailand seemed perfect. Warm weather, cheap cost of living, and a culture that supposedly respected elders. What I didn't expect was how lonely I'd feel, surrounded by millions of people who didn't speak my language. The expat bars were full of bitter men complaining about everything, and the younger travelers treated me like furniture. I needed something real, something that mattered. Looking at these photos now, I realize how perfectly Sirilawan understood that need. The cafe on Sukhumvit Road was crowded that December morning when I first saw her. Sirilawan moved between tables with this quiet grace, refilling coffee cups and smiling at customers in a way that seemed genuine. At 69, I'd been living in Bangkok for 6 months, retired from my consulting work in Madrid, tired of being alone in a city where everyone else seemed to have someone. When she approached my table, her English was careful but warm. "You are from Spain?" she asked, noticing the Spanish newspaper I'd been pretending to read. "Madrid," I replied, surprised by her interest. Most service workers barely acknowledged foreign customers beyond taking their orders. "My cousin lived in Barcelona for 2 years," she said, lingering by my table despite other customers waiting. "She'd tell me Spanish people very kind, very family-oriented." Something in the way she said family-oriented made my chest tighten. "Are you married?" she asked with innocent curiosity. "I was," I said quietly. "My wife passed away." Her face immediately filled with sympathy that felt genuine. "I am sorry. That must be very difficult." She paused, then added, "I am single mother. My husband left when children were small. I understand being alone." When she said she understood being alone, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Recognition. Here was someone who truly knew what it felt like to carry emptiness around like a weight. "How old are your children?" I asked. "Niran is 12, Kulap is 10, she said, her face lighting up. "They live with my aunt in Isayan province. I work here to send money for their school." I found myself lingering over my coffee longer than usual, and she kept finding excuses to return to my table. "You seem sad today," she observed during one visit. The simple acknowledgement of my emotional state nearly brought tears to my eyes. When had anyone last cared enough to notice how I was feeling? She never asked for money directly, not in the beginning. Sirilawan would just mention things casually. Her daughter Kulap needed new school books, her son Niran had a fever, and medicine was expensive. I started offering before she could ask, slipping her a few thousand baht here and there, feeling useful for the first time in months. She'd show me photos on her phone, these beautiful children who supposedly lived with her aunt in Isan while she worked in Bangkok. The way she talked about them, with this mixture of love and sadness, made my chest ache. I wanted to be part of something that mattered, wanted to help this struggling mother who seemed to care about me. "You don't have to give me money," she'd protest gently when I'd offer to help with Niran's medicine. "You already do so much just by listening to my problems." But I could see the relief in her eyes when I insisted, and that relief made me feel like I was actually accomplishing something meaningful with my life. She'd call the children while I was there, speaking rapid Thai into her phone, then translate bits of the conversation for me. "Niran wants to know if the Spanish man is coming to visit," she'd say with a shy smile. I told him maybe someday. The idea of these children I'd never met thinking about me, wanting to meet me, filled a hole in my heart I didn't even know existed. "What does he like to play?" I'd ask. "Football," she'd reply. "He dreams of being like those Spanish players on Real Madrid." I started watching football highlights on my phone, learning player names so I could talk to Niran when we finally met. "Kulap loves to dance," Sri Lawan would tell me another day. "She practices traditional Thai dancing after school. Her teacher says she has natural talent." I'd imagine this little girl twirling in colorful costumes, and I'd find myself smiling for the first time in months. When Sri Lawan showed me a photo of Kulap in her dance outfit, I stared at it for so long she laughed. "You like children very much," she observed. "My wife and I tried for many years," I admitted. "It never happened for us." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Maybe God has different plan for you," she said softly. When Sri Lawan suggested I move in with her, it felt natural. Her small apartment near Phrom Phong was nothing fancy, but she made it feel like home. She'd cook Spanish dishes she'd learned from YouTube, trying to make me feel comfortable. The photos of Niran and Kulap were everywhere, on the refrigerator, the walls, her phone's lock screen. She'd call them every evening, speaking in rapid Thai that I couldn't understand, but I'd hear her laugh and see her face light up. Sometimes she'd put me on the phone, and I'd stumble through basic Thai greetings while these young voices giggled on the other end. "Niran wants to practice English with you," Sri Lawan would explain, handing me the phone. "Hello, Papa Miguel," a young boy's voice would say carefully. Papa Miguel. The first time he called me that, I had to step outside because my eyes filled with tears. Nobody had ever called me Papa or anything. "Hello, my boy," I'd respond, my voice thick with emotion. "How was school today?" "Very good, Papa Miguel. I got A on mathematics test." I'd beam with pride as if I'd had anything to do with his success. Kulap was shyer on the phone, but she'd whisper, "I miss you, Papa Miguel," before hanging up, and those words would echo in my head for days. Living with Sri Lawan felt like being part of a real family for the first time in my life. She'd ask about my day, listen to my stories about Spain, share her dreams for her children's future. "I want Niran to study engineering," she'd say as we watched Thai news together. "And Kulap, maybe she can be dancer or teacher." I could help pay for their university, I offered one evening. She looked at me with such gratitude that I felt 10 feet tall. "You would do that for my children?" "They feel like my children too," I admitted, and I meant it completely. The day those school certificates arrived by mail, Sri Lawan was practically glowing. She spread them out on our bed like they were made of gold, pointing to each line with pride. There was my name, clear as day, listed as the father on both documents. Niran's certificate showed he'd made honor roll. Kulap's showed perfect attendance. The school letterhead looked official, complete with stamps and signatures. Sri Lawan explained that she'd finally told the children's school about how I was helping support them. "The principal wanted to acknowledge my contribution," she said. Looking at those certificates, seeing my name officially connected to these children, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, like I belonged to a real family. "Look," Sri Lawan pointed to a line on Niran's certificate. They wrote, "Father, Miguel Santos. The school knows you are important to him." I stared at my name printed in official font, my hands actually trembling. "I've never been anyone's father," I whispered. "Now you are," she said, kissing my cheek. They love you so much. I called my brother in Madrid that night, something I hadn't done in months. I have children now, I told him. Well, not biological, but they're mine in every way that matters. He was surprised but pleased to hear the happiness in my voice. Send me photos, he said. I want to see my nephews and niece. I spent an hour selecting the best pictures of Niran and Kulap to email him, proud as any father showing off his kids. The certificates went into frames immediately, displayed on our dresser, where I could see them first thing every morning. I'd wake up and look at those documents, and they'd remind me that I mattered to someone, that I was making a difference in 2 young lives. When other expats complained about Thailand being just a place to drink cheap beer and chase women, I'd think about my children and feel sorry for them. They didn't understand what it meant to have a real purpose here. We started planning my trip to Isan to meet the children properly. Sirilawan would show me maps on her phone, pointing out the village where they lived with her aunt. She'd describe the house, the school, the local temple where the children went for special ceremonies. I bought gifts in advance, a football for Niran, art supplies for Kulap. The anticipation was almost overwhelming. At night, lying next to Sirilawan, I'd imagine what it would be like to finally hold these children I'd been supporting, to see their real smiles instead of just photos. She seemed excited too, but sometimes I'd catch her staring at the ceiling with this strange expression I couldn't quite read. Are you nervous about me meeting them? I asked one night. Little bit, she admitted. What if they don't like you in person? What if I don't live up to their expectations? I worried aloud. You are a good man, she assured me. They will love you. We planned everything in detail. I'd take a bus to Isayan, stay in a local guest house, spend 3 days with the family. Sirilawan would take time off work to come with me to help translate and make introductions. I researched the area online, learning about local customs and appropriate gifts to bring the aunt who'd been caring for my children. Should I call her grandmother? I asked. Or aunt? Aunt is good, Sirilawan said. She will be so happy to meet the man who helps her sister's children. I practiced basic Thai phrases for weeks, wanting to make a good impression. How do I tell them I love them? I asked during one of our language lessons. Pom rak nong, she taught me. I repeated it until it felt natural on my tongue. I imagined saying those words to Niran and Kulap, imagined their faces lighting up with understanding. The trip was scheduled for the following month. I counted down the days like a child waiting for Christmas. Every time we planned to visit, something went wrong. First, Kulap got sick and couldn't travel. Then Niran had important exams. Then the aunt had a family emergency and couldn't host visitors. Each delay felt reasonable at the time, but the pattern was starting to gnaw at me. Sirilawan would apologize profusely, show me photos of the sick child or the exam schedule, and I'd convince myself to be patient. But late at night, when she thought I was sleeping, I'd sometimes catch her on the phone speaking in hushed, urgent Thai. When I'd ask who she was talking to, she'd always say it was work, but her voice carried a tension that hadn't been there before. Maybe we should just surprise them, I suggested after the 4th postponement. Drive up there without calling ahead. No, Sirilawan said quickly. That would be rude. In Thai culture, you must arrange visits properly. I accepted her. The explanation, but something felt off. The children ask about you every day, she'd tell me after these mysterious phone calls. They draw pictures for you at school. She'd show me crayon drawings that supposedly came from Kulap, stick figures of our family holding hands under a rainbow. I kept these drawings in a special folder, treasuring each childish scribble like a masterpiece. But when I looked closely, some of the handwriting seemed inconsistent, as if different people had drawn them. Kulap's writing is getting better, I mentioned once. Yes, she practices very hard, Sirilawan agreed quickly. Too quickly. I started studying the photos more carefully, looking for details that might tell me more about my children's daily lives. The backgrounds were always generic. White walls, simple furniture. No toys visible, no personal items that would indicate these were actually their bedrooms. Where do they do homework? I asked. At kitchen table, Sirilawan replied. Can. You show me photo of them studying? They don't like photos when studying, she said. Children, you know, always shy. Every explanation made sense individually, but together they were starting to form a pattern that made me uncomfortable. Everything unraveled with a single phone call I wasn't supposed to hear. I came home early from my Thai language class and found Sirilawan on the balcony, speaking rapidly into her phone. I understood more Thai by then than she realized, and the words I caught made my blood freeze. She was laughing about the old Spanish fool and mentioning something about photos and the children game. When she saw me standing in the doorway, her face went white. I confronted her immediately, demanding to know what she'd really been saying. She tried to deflect, claimed I'd misunderstood, but the panic in her eyes told me everything I needed to know. "Who were you talking to?" I demanded in Spanish, too angry to speak Thai. "Just friend from work," she stammered. "You were laughing about me," I said. "I heard you say Spanish fool. What children game?" "You don't understand Thai very well," she insisted, but her voice was shaking. "Your pronunciation is not good." "I understood enough," I said coldly. "What children game, Sirilawan? What photos?" She started crying then, which had always worked to diffuse my anger before, but this time the tears felt different, calculated. "Please, Miguel," she sobbed. "You misunderstood everything." "Then explain it to me," I said. "Explain what I misunderstood." She couldn't meet my eyes. In that moment, standing on our balcony with Bangkok traffic roaring below, I felt something shift inside my chest. The warm certainty I'd carried for 3 years began to crack like ice in the sun. "I want to see the children tomorrow," I announced. "Not next week, not next month. Tomorrow." "That's impossible," she said immediately. "Why is it impossible?" "They have school and the aunt is busy and—" "Then we call them right now," I interrupted. "Let me talk to my children right now." The fear in her eyes was unmistakable. That's when I knew. Deep in my gut, I knew that everything I'd believed about my life in Bangkok was about to collapse. The fight that followed was unlike anything we'd experienced. I demanded to see the children immediately, that very day. Sirilawan broke down, first with tears, then with anger, finally with a kind of desperate honesty that terrified me. "The children didn't exist," she admitted. "The photos were from a modeling agency website. The phone calls were to her friend, who would pretend to be different children. Even the school certificates were fake, printed by someone she knew in the document. Business. She'd spent 3 years creating an elaborate fiction because she knew I needed to feel needed, and she needed my money to survive. The worst part wasn't the deception itself, but how perfectly she'd understood my loneliness and used it against me. "You wanted to be father so badly," she cried. "I gave you that feeling. I made you happy." "With lies," I shouted. "Everything was lies." "But your happiness was real," she shot back. "When you talked about Niran's football or Kulap's dancing, you were really happy. I gave you that." I stared at her through my fury and saw something that made my anger falter. She wasn't just a con artist. She was a woman trapped in her own web of deception, genuinely confused about why I was angry about being deceived into happiness. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked quietly. "From the beginning," she whispered. "I saw you in cafe looking so sad, so alone. Other girls, they try to get money with sexy clothes, with promises of love. But you were different. You needed family, not girlfriend. So you invented children. I invented what you needed most," she said, "and it worked. You were happy for 3 years. I couldn't argue with that. I had been happy. For 3 years, I'd woken up every morning, with purpose, gone to sleep every night feeling needed and loved. "The phone calls," I said. "Who was pretending to be them?" "My friend Whipperwan, she has young voice, can sound like boy or girl. We practiced different personalities for Niran and Kulap." I remembered all those conversations, all those times. I'd felt so proud to be called Papa Miguel. "Even the drawings?" "I bought them from street market. Children sell drawings for tourists." Every memory was contaminated now, every moment of joy revealed as manipulation. As the truth came out, I learned about an entire underground network of document forgers in Bangkok. Sirilawan showed me how easy it was, websites where you could buy realistic-looking school certificates, birth certificates, even medical reports. Her friend Wipperwan ran a small operation from her apartment, creating fake documents for various scams targeting lonely expats. The school letterheads, official stamps, even the paper quality. Everything was designed to fool people like me who wanted so desperately to believe. Sirilawan had paid about 500 baht per certificate, less than $15, to create a family that felt more real to me than my actual life in Madrid. "Show me," I demanded. "Show me how you did it." We went to Wipperwan's apartment the next day, and I met the woman who'd been voicing my children for 3 years. She was younger than Sirilawan, maybe 35, with a shy smile and excellent English. "I remember you," she said when we met. "You are Papa Miguel. Niran and Kulap talk about you all the time." Even knowing it was fake, hearing her slip into those childish voices made my heart ache. "Why did you help her do this to me?" I asked. "At first, just for money," Wipperwan admitted. "But then I hear how happy you sound when you talk to children. You really love them. It made me feel good to make you feel good." She showed me the computer setup where she created the documents, professional-grade photo editing software, high-quality printers, authentic-looking paper bought from a supplier who specialized in document forgery. "Many foreigners get fake degrees this way," she explained, "or fake marriage certificates for visas. Your certificates were easy, just change names and dates." The casualness with which she described counterfeiting official documents was stunning. This wasn't some sophisticated criminal operation. It was a cottage industry, a side hustle for people trying to make extra money. "How many other men have fake children?" I asked. "Not many," Wipperwan said. "Usually it's fake sick parents or fake husbands in jail. Children are harder, too much work to maintain the story." I was a special case, apparently. My need for family was so specific, so deep, that they'd crafted a bespoke deception just for me. What destroyed me wasn't just Sirilawan's deception, but understanding how common it was. She introduced me to other women in similar situations, bar workers, massage therapists, shop assistants, all supporting fake families to extract money from Western men. Some had fake sick parents, others had fake children in school. A few even had fake husbands in prison who needed bail money. It was an entire economy built on exploiting male loneliness and the Western fantasy of being a savior. These women weren't monsters. They were survivors in a system that offered them few alternatives. But that understanding didn't make the betrayal hurt any less. "Meet my friend Jira," Sirilawan said at a coffee shop near Nana Plaza. Jira was about 40, well-dressed, speaking perfect English. Her German boyfriend sends money for her mother's cancer treatment. "But your mother died last year," I pointed out, confused. Jira smiled sadly. "Yes, she did. But Hans doesn't know that. He feels so good about helping, about being important to my family. If I tell him the truth, he will leave and I will have no money for my real daughter's school." "Your real daughter?" "She lives with my sister in Chiang Mai," Jira explained. "I send her Hans's money every month. She gets good education because he thinks he's saving my mother." The logic was twisted but somehow understandable. "What happens when he wants to visit your mother?" "I tell him she's too sick for visitors," Jira said, "or that she's in special hospital that doesn't allow foreigners. There's always an excuse." I met 5 women that day, each with elaborate fake family scenarios designed to appeal to different types of Western men. One had a fake disabled son who needed physical therapy. Another had fake twin daughters who were supposedly gifted students, needing expensive tutoring. A third had a fake elderly father who required constant medical care. "We study your psychology," Sirilawan explained later. "German men like to solve problems, so we give them medical emergencies. American men like to be heroes, so we give them dramatic situations. Spanish men like family, so we give them children to love." The clinical way she described manipulating my emotions was almost worse than the original deception. Sitting at her kitchen table with a calculator, we added up 3 years of deception. School fees, medical bills, uniforms, food money, emergency expenses, over 800,000 baht, nearly 20,000 euros. Money I'd sent gladly, feeling proud each time I could help my children succeed. Sirilawan watched me calculate our relationship's true cost, with this mixture of shame and defiance. She'd used most of it to support her real family back in Isan, her actual sick mother, her brother's gambling debts, her sister's beauty shop that kept failing. The children were fake, but the poverty was real. The love she'd shown me was performance, but the desperation behind it was genuine. 20,000 euros, I said quietly, staring at the number. That's half my annual pension. I know it's a lot, she said, but think about what you got for that money. 3 years of feeling like a father. 3 years of happiness. Can you put a price on that? I wanted to hit her for making that argument, for trying to justify fraud as a service. You stole from me. I gave you what you wanted most, she insisted. You were dying of loneliness in that cafe when I met you. Now look at you. You learned Thai, you made friends, you had purpose. I changed your life. With lies. With hope, she corrected. Does it matter if the hope was based on real children or fake ones? The feeling was real. I couldn't deny that the happiness had been genuine, but that somehow made it worse. She'd taken my capacity for love and twisted it into a weapon against myself. What about your real family? I asked. Do they know about me? My mother knows I have foreign boyfriend who helps with money, she admitted. She doesn't ask questions. My brother and sister, they just know the money comes from Bangkok. So I've been supporting your entire family for 3 years. Yes, she said simply, and we are grateful. The gratitude in her voice was sincere, which made everything more confusing. How do you hate someone who's genuinely thankful for your pain? Show me the real photos, I demanded. She hesitated, then pulled out her phone and scrolled to a different folder. Her real mother was 73, thin and frail-looking, sitting outside a wooden house. Her brother was maybe 45, with the glazed eyes of someone with serious addiction problems. Her sister looked tired and worried, standing in front of what appeared to be a struggling beauty salon. This is my real family, Sirilawan said. The money you sent helped them survive. Looking at these genuine photos of genuine poverty, I felt my anger mixing with something else. Not forgiveness, but understanding. The fake children had been a business decision, but the need behind it was achingly real. We both knew I couldn't stay after learning the truth, but leaving was harder than I'd expected. Sirilawan begged me to understand her situation, to see that she'd grown to care for me even within the lie. She offered to take me to meet her real family, to start over with honesty, but we both knew it was impossible. How do you rebuild trust when the foundation was completely fabricated? The night before I left for Madrid, we sat together on the balcony where I'd overheard that devastating phone call. She was crying, I was numb, and Bangkok spread out below us like a glittering maze of other people's secrets. I gave her money, for one final month's rent, knowing it was probably stupid, unable to stop myself from wanting to take care of her even after everything. I do love you, she said quietly. Not the way I loved Niran and Kulap, but I do care about you. How? Can I believe anything you say now? I asked. You can't, she admitted, but I'm telling you anyway. We sat in silence for a long time, watching the city lights flicker like stars. Will you find another man to scam? I finally asked. I don't know, she said honestly. This was very exhausting, keeping track of all the stories, all the phone calls. Maybe I try a different way to make money. Like what? Maybe get real job, she said with a bitter laugh. Maybe be honest for a change. I almost smiled despite everything. That would be different. You are first man who ever asked me. To be honest, she said, usually they want fantasy, want to believe they are special, want to believe Thai women really love them for who they are, not for money. Did you ever love anyone honestly? I asked. Once, she said. Long time ago. But love doesn't pay rent or buy food. Love doesn't send your mother to hospital when she gets sick. So you chose survival over honesty. I chose survival over everything, she corrected, just like you chose loneliness over honesty. What do you mean? You knew something was wrong, she said quietly. Deep inside you knew, but you didn't want to know, so you didn't ask hard questions. You wanted to believe, so you believed. I hated her for saying that because it was true. There had been signs, inconsistencies, things that didn't quite add up. But I dismissed them all because I needed the fantasy more than I needed the truth. Now, I'm back in my old apartment in Madrid, surrounded by the photos that once brought me so much joy. Little Niran and Kulap smile at me from frames I can't bring myself to throw away. These ghost children, who helped me feel like a father for 3 beautiful, terrible years. Some nights, I wonder if the love I felt was real, even if its objects weren't. I learned to care for something beyond myself, learned to worry about school grades and childhood illnesses and dance recitals. Maybe that growth matters, even built on a lie. But mostly I just feel old and foolish, staring at fake certificates with my real name on them, wondering how many other men in Bangkok are tucking fictional children into bed tonight, sending money across oceans to families that exist only in their desperate need to matter to someone, anyone in this world. My brother calls sometimes, asking about the children he never met. I haven't told him the truth yet. How do you explain that your grandchildren never existed? How do you admit that you spent 3 years being proud of imaginary accomplishments, loving imaginary people, building imaginary relationships? The Spanish expat community in Madrid has welcomed me back, but when they ask about Thailand, I tell them it didn't work out. They assume I mean the weather or the food, and I let them believe whatever makes them comfortable. Sometimes I think about Sirilawan, wonder if she found another lonely man to save with fake families. Part of me hopes she did, hopes she's still out there giving desperate people the illusion of mattering to someone. Another part of me hopes she took her own advice and tried honesty for a change. I'll never know which path she chose, and maybe that's for the best. The love I felt for Niran and Kulap was real, even if they weren't. The pride I felt watching them grow up was genuine, even if it was based on lies. The sense of purpose I had for 3 years changed me, made me a better man, taught me that I was capable of selfless love. Those lessons don't disappear just because their source was fabricated. Sometimes I catch myself wondering what those children would be like. Now, if they were real, Niran would be 15, maybe playing for his school football team. Kulap would be 13, perhaps still dancing, growing into the beautiful young woman I always imagined she'd become. In my mind, they're still out there somewhere, still calling me Papa Miguel, still needing me to care about their dreams and worry about their futures, and maybe in some small way that's enough. Maybe the love we give matters more than whether its recipients actually exist to receive it. Maybe being a father, even a fake father, taught me something about being human that I couldn't have learned any other way. Or maybe I'm just an old fool making excuses for being deceived, finding meaning where none exists, still choosing comfortable lies over uncomfortable truths. I honestly don't know anymore, and perhaps that uncertainty is the most honest thing I can say about any of this. The photos remain on my kitchen table, and I remain unable to throw them away. Some nights I still whisper goodnight to children who never existed and wonder if somewhere in Bangkok, another lonely man is discovering that love, even fake love, can feel more real than anything else in his empty world.